Colossians 1:20 is continuing the thought from verse 19, and it introduces another infinitive that's parallel with one in verse 19. That's why the part of verse 19 is in gray. Kai diautou apokatalaxai ta panta eis auton erenopoiesas diatou haimatos tu staurou autou di autou eta ta epiteskes eta ta en tois uranois. So you remember verse 19, that all the fullness was pleased to dwell. And now we have and through him. Then what's this long word? Well, the key is that C, isn't it? There's got to be a sigma in that C, and the only time you have psi is in your aorist infinitive, right? So it's, and through him to reconcile all things to himself, making peace, we're going to come back to that, through the blood of the cross of him. So through the blood of his cross. And that's kind of an awkward construction. Some translations just say the blood of his cross. CSB says blood shed on the cross. So the NIV as well. NLT says by means of Christ's blood on the cross. And then you have diautou, and the brackets simply mean that there's a textual variant here. And for whatever reason, the the editors of the Greek text decided not to give us the critical evidence for it, so they just put it in brackets. And it's interesting, in the translations, apparently only the NET does translate that. They say through the blood of his cross dash through him. And the problem is, this is redundant with that. And so probably it's the harder reading to keep it because it is redundant. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And in fact, most of the modern translations don't even translate this diautou. The NET does, says, by making peace through the blood of his cross dash through him. So they are following that variant, but it's a hard variant to translate. So through him, whether the things on the earth, and you have this sequence then, or the things, neuter plural, the things in heaven or in the heavens. Phrasing really does help this, but I'm going to have to shrink the text. I think it's going to run off the screen if I don't. So we're going to put Kai on its own line, through him, to reconcile all things to himself, making peace through the blood of his cross, through him, and then the sequence, whether the things on the earth or the things in the heaven. So what we're going to have here is we got to bring in the conjunction, and this through him, meaning through Jesus, to reconcile all things to himself. And you could just say making peace, but the real issue is what kind of participle is this? And it's obviously a participle of means. It's the way in which all things were reconciled. And so you got to put it under there. And we'd say by making peace through his blood of his cross. And then if we're going to keep this, again, it's to reconcile through him. And then what you have is that you've got a clarification by what they mean by all things. And so you got to pull them over here. And because there's intervening words, you may want to do something like that to make it clear that by all things, he means all things. Now, what's really interesting in the translation here is that because these two eta clauses modify panta, what some of the translations do is they move this up in order. So, for example, the ESV says, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, then down below, whether on earth or in heaven, then back up to the participle, making peace by the blood of his cross. CSB does the same thing. NRSV, NIV does it. It's just not understandable if you don't change the order of the Greek to get the two eta clauses modifying the panta. In fact, what I might want to do is to pull this back. And I might want to pull back the chi a little so it doesn't look like a sequence, because what you have is a modifier, and a modifier of to reconcile. That's probably better.